This podcast is being recorded on Kaurna land. We honour and celebrate the strong cultural traditions of motherhood, family and connection to country. No woman can say motherhood hasn't changed her, but every mother's story is different.
So we're not saying be perfect in your diet. We're just saying let's kind of clean it up where we can, when it's easy, when it's affordable. Because I don't want better food to cost more for families. Cost of groceries, I've seen it, every week we track the specials. There's been a huge price hike in groceries. And the thing I've worried about the most during the last couple of years is people thinking that they can't afford to eat well.
This is How Motherhood Changed Me. I am Kerry Turner.
And I'm Jenny Yates. The cost of living is something we're all feeling at the moment, Kez. Everything seems to cost more, but we also want to make sure our kids are eating the good stuff. So it's like a vicious cycle.
It really is. Yep, that's it.
Well, there's an account on Instagram that we both love, Supermarket Swap. It's full of tips and tricks to make better choices when buying our groceries. That'll also save us money.
Yes, please.
Today we're speaking to the woman behind it, who is also a mum of two, Nabula Brdar. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, this is I'm going to learn so much. I've got my notepad ready. I'm going to take all the notes today.
It's actually almost like a little bit of a fangirl moment for me too, because I've been like
following
a follower for a long time, and it's like, oh my God,
Nabs is here. Be cool.
You already know everything that's happening.
And being Adelaide, we've already made connections with the same people. So now, Nabs, before we jump into this chat and pick your brain on how we can save ourselves some dollars, could you give us one word to describe the woman that you were before you became a mum?
Free.
Without hesitation.
That's probably the first word that jumps into my mind.
Let's stick with that. I love it.
Yeah, I felt very, free spirit.
Yeah.
Not so much in early motherhood, but probably coming back to that a little bit more now as they get older.
It's so true. You do find yourself again.
Yeah, I've even found in the last 12 months with a 6 and a 9-year-old. Oh,
mine is 6 and 8. I feel like that's the golden age where things shift a little bit and get this little bit balanced.
I agree.
Okay. I thought I was feeling good now, but I've got more
There's
good
more
times.
to come.
Oh, yeah.
All right, I love it. Well, let's start at the beginning. How did Supermarket Swap come to be? Like, can you tell us the backstory?
Sure. It came to be very organically. I never thought it would be a thing that it is now. It was when I first became a mum, and as you do, you become aware of everything that you do, you buy. It's a different way of life, as we know. And I had just given birth to my second child, my daughter Ella. So she was around 1, my son was around 3, and he just was transitioning from that phase of, the first foods, and we're sort of making everything in our kitchen from scratch. And it was in that toddler sort of phase, like a bit, older toddler, teenager, where they start wanting those little kind of packet snacks and, you're balancing out what you're cooking at home, but you're also buying a little bit more from the supermarket because there's a bit more free rein on what they can eat. So I became a bit more aware of what I was buying. So for years I stopped really reading ingredient lists. I'd always scan the nutrition table for sodium and sugar. So salt and sugar, how much of that is in the food that I'm buying. But the ingredient lists were really lengthy, contained all these names and codes and numbers that I didn't know and I couldn't decipher. So as many people have now said to me, they've given up. But once I started shopping for my kids, I really wanted to slow down and really be aware of what was in our food. So I started reading the labels, which sounds kind of boring and basic, but a lot of people are not even reading the labels of what they buy. We're often we're time poor, we're busy, we're rushing through the aisle, or we've got small kids with us. So, that's a whole different story when you're food shopping. Yeah. And often we are relying on what's on the front of the packaging, which is often the marketing. So low in fibre, no artificial colours or flavours, but the thing with the front of the packet is it is pure marketing, and the back, the nutrition table and the ingredient list is a legal requirement for a product. So what it actually contains in what we're purchasing. So I decided to kind of slow it down a little bit and turn over the package and actually focus on those two things and find the best option available in the supermarket, because I was in Woolies or Coles every week. That's how I was feeding my family. And I knew that I could do better with what I was buying. And that's how it started, just by being a really sort of aware mum.
You were in need yourself of something
some
like
guidance,
that.
Yeah. So you mentioned that all the numbers and the codes that we see on the back of packagings. You've had to go away and work out what they all are.
Yes, well, that kind of came later once I sort of, from when I started finding things in the supermarket.
Right.
I started a little Facebook group for my closest friends. It was 10 of us, because they're all time poor mums, busy career women, and they're like, "Oh, you found the best yogurt? What's that? Tell us the best crackers. What's the best chips?" And they were really into it. So I started this little Facebook private chat. And I look back at it now, I think, oh my God, what a dork.
Do you still have it?
Yeah, I do. It's so funny.
No, I want to in on that.
Let me in.
I'm just telling them, my friends, about, this is the best hot chocolate powder I had in there. And they loved it. But I thought that they were just being nice, because this was
friends.
my new passion project. It did also stem from my son around 3 showing some really big behaviours.
Yeah.
So we were having some challenging behaviour that was coming through. So I was probably more aware of what he was eating after someone had mentioned to me, does he have a lot of sugar? And I was like, not really, we don't buy a lot of junk. Does he have a lot of additives and preservatives? And I was like, what do you mean? They're in the food. And I'm like, okay, so that's those unusual numbers. Codes and those lengthy names.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, they don't have much chips and chocolate and ice cream. None of my kids don't eat much junk. He's only 3. And someone said, well, no, it's actually in everything you buy. And I was really shocked. I was like, no. I'm a proud Greek home cook. I didn't assume that a lot of what I was buying was loaded with additives. And that night, my husband and I decided to look at the pantry and go, okay, well, let's have a look at what's in here. And I was mind blown. And what was in our stock powder, the tomato sauce, what was in the butter that we were using, the bread that I was buying. It was the basics.
Wow.
So that's what kind of triggered me to go into the supermarket and find products that didn't contain those additives and preservatives.
And it's no wonder they won't eat a piece of broccoli if their taste buds are being hijacked by all of these additives.
100%. And that's why I'm so passionate now. I'm on a bit of a back to school rampage at the moment because parents have got a really hard job.
Yeah.
So when you're going up against giant food manufacturers who are loading artificial flavour enhancers and colourings to make food look more enticing or taste almost surreal, because it's not real food, these flavour enhancers, how are you meant to get your child to just eat a normal home cooked meal? That is the challenge we've got in our generation, that we are competing with these food giants because this makes the food addictive. Of course, kids love it. They want it. They sell more. So their goal is their profit margin. And our goal as time poor, tired parents is trying to get our kids to eat nutritious meals. Yeah. But we are up against battling this wave of excessive additives being added to food being marketed to children. And it's kind of sad to see in a way.
I feel like it's a bit overwhelming. There's a lot to take in. I'd love to know sort of the easing into it that you'd recommend to people. But ultimately, knowledge is power. And when we're armed with the knowledge, we can make better choices.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it might not be, no chips. It might just be, this is the brand of chips that we buy. But how do you ease somebody into this? Because for a mum who maybe just goes and does a normal shop, doesn't think about any of it, I mean, she's not going to chuck all her stuff away. You got to slowly do it, right?
And we would never want anyone to do that. And that's not how I started or what I do now. So it's all about balance and awareness for me.
Yeah.
So I think it's not about not having chips and chocolate and ice cream. It's about making sort of educated food choices. And that's all you want for anyone. It's not about not having additives as well. And I think there's a lot of hoo-ha out there on social media about additives are bad and you'll die if you eat them. And we're, I hope, seen as the opposite of that, because in our app we rank them as safe, caution, be aware you're having it, and some things just to avoid, simply unnecessary. So for someone starting out, it's basically looking at areas that you want to improve. So you go, okay, my kids have little chippies in their lunchbox every day. We're not saying don't have chips. We're saying, okay, let's make the best choice possible. And then what we do is the research to then tell the mum. So we don't even want you to think. You can go onto our Instagram pages, so much free content. And we're like, this is a packet of chips and this is the amount of additives listed. This packet of chips has 3 recognisable ingredients. So potatoes, oil and salt. Let's start there. So we're not saying be perfect in your diet. We're just saying let's kind of clean it up where we we can when it's easy, when it's affordable. Because I don't want better food to cost more for families. Cost of groceries, I've seen it, every week we track the specials. There's been a huge price hike in groceries. And the thing I've worried about the most during the last couple of years is people thinking that they can't afford to eat well. But that's why we're really passionate about showing ways to save in the supermarket, not just specials. There's so many tips and tricks that we have because good food should be accessible to everyone and everyone should be able to afford to eat well. And when you're swapping over simply the brands you're buying on the shelf, that is such a great way to do so without spending more. We're not saying go to the health food shop and spend $18 on a thing of honey, which you can easily do. But people can't afford that.
Yeah.
So it's the basic, just, look at a couple of areas that you'd like to improve, or even just swapping out some of your basics that you use a lot in your home cooking. So maybe choose a good passata, choose a good stock powder. There's, get a better loaf of bread, just some of those basics, because additive consumption is all about the amount you have in a day.
Yeah.
So if you're aware and you go, okay, I'm going to have them here, but I'm not having them there. The problem is when you have them breakfast, lunch, dinner, unknowingly, that's when you're consuming a lot. So it's just about being aware and starting slow.
Yeah.
When your awareness was opened up to all of this, did you notice a change in your son's behaviours?
Huge. And our whole family at the time, actually. And that was way before supermarket swap even was a thought in my head. So this started as a really authentic mission as a mum trying to improve my son's behaviour and our family, how we were coping at the time. I still had a daughter that I was breastfeeding. You're in that phase where you're not sleeping much. I've got meltdowns from a toddler, a husband that works 500 hours a week. It was just a lot at the time. But I remember trying everything, and we had been to a lot of doctors, to be honest, and we're doing quite a lot of things, but no one had mentioned and said to me, what are you eating?
Yeah.
Which I find wild now that nutrition wasn't part or wasn't asked in that time of our life. It came from the side, this thought about let's tidy up what we're eating. And so we tried it, like I said, that night we went through the pantry and had a look at the amount that we were consuming, and some of it was food colorings and the flavour enhancers and all of those things. I started researching as a mother does. Like, what does this mean? What's the side effects? What's this? Oh, okay. And I was like, no, that's it. So we cut everything for 2 weeks. We went entirely additive free, actually. But that's the phase I was at. I'm not saying for anyone else to do that. Start slow, swap here and there. But for me, I was like, I would do anything right now to improve our how we are going.
Just household life.
Yeah. I needed to slow it down. And for within 2 weeks, I had noticed a huge change in my son's behaviour. So he was having probably daily meltdowns at this stage, and we went to maybe 1 or 2 a week. So we were still having them, but it was a lot less.
And you can handle when there's only 1 or 2.
That's
not
definitely.
when they're daily.
Yeah, and he was having things like, Vegemite and butter on toast. So I'm not saying I was making him the most nutritious breakfast, but that's a really popular breakfast for a little kid. Yeah. But then I realised, Vegemite is probably yeast extract in the excessive sodium and the food colorings in there. The butter I was buying was also full of a whole range of things, and the bread I had was terrible too. So I literally swapped my bread, butter and the topping, and so something as simple as that. So it wasn't a huge change. It was well received by him because it was the same, but it was so different. We were, reducing 10 to 15 additives being consumed at breakfast time. And even for myself personally, I'd always, it's not that glamorous, but I'd always had skin rashes. So something I'd always had, was it eczema? Was it, who knows, over the years, doctor, steroid cream. And all my rashes cleared up. So I found that sulfites for me was something I'm quite sensitive to. So even when I had a glass of white wine back in the day, I would get sort of red patches on my skin and be quite, itchy there. So beautiful, but it's really amazing. I don't,
that's
that doesn't
interesting.
happen now. And now if I do have a glass of wine that does happen, I know exactly why. Whereas before it's just one of those things. We've all got those little things that whether it's headaches or skin rashes or upset stomachs or bloating, and a lot of it can be linked to excessive additive consumption.
It's so funny. I can remember even back in the 90s, my brother in particular had a problem with red food colouring,
right.
A red cordial type of situation. And I don't feel like that was very uncommon, but that was just red food
makes you hypo.
Makes him hypo. And all of these years later, that stuff's still on the shelves. And it's so interesting because that was a known thing then. And it's almost like a case of voting with your dollars, isn't it? Because the more we can purchase better products, the market makes adjustments and realizes, well, actually, this is what is important to mums in this day and age.
And there's been so many amazing brands come out now that don't use the artificial food colorings. They use natural food colorings. There's definitely an abundance of options for us now. So it's great that things are changing, and it's all about shopping with our dollars and supporting the people that are caring about what they're putting into our food.
My kids, like all kids at school, love to have the packet treats that, so-and-so's got that in their lunchbox. Can you buy them for us? Late last year, I got to a point where I was tired. I did buy all the treats. Yeah. Here, have it in your lunchbox. But over the summer holidays that we had recently, I bought myself a recipe book, which is additive-free lunchbox ideas.
Yes.
And spent a whole heap of time baking, put it in the freezer. Week 1, back at school, it was a big test.
Empty lunchboxes?
Smashed it.
Yeah. Amazing.
These ideas I hadn't thought of, like little banana loaves, and they just get half each because it's probably a bit much for them to have the whole thing. Little chocolate and zucchini muffins, and these are delicious, Mum. Like, okay, we're onto something here. I need to
and we're
do
talking
more
about
of this.
Cost of living. I mean, you're saving so much money because those things in the shops, I mean, it's ridiculous what they're asking cost-wise.
And I'll say to the kids now, if I see something on special, maybe you'll get it as a treat.
Yeah.
But otherwise, guess what? You're the kids that have a lunchbox full of homemade treats.
Well, you are goals, because that is what we all aspire to, and we're very passionate about like the home cooking if you can, and for mums that have the time. But I think once you get in the habit, you're like, oh, I do have the time.
Yeah,
it's actually I think it's the overwhelm. Like, oh, this is another thing I've got to do now. I've got to bake my homemade treats. But the more we got into it, and I used to joke all the time that I'm like the worst baker. Whereas now I love it because I'm like, oh my gosh, I can make like 12 muffins. I know that they're great, they're easy. So we are always sharing heaps of lunchbox recipes. We actually created a filter in the app now called Lunchbox, just for those like tired mums who just want to know what to make and what to put in. And we test all our recipes on our kids.
Great.
So sometimes some recipes are just so healthy, which is great. We want that. But the kids are like, I'm not going to eat that. Like they like, ooh. So we know it has to be like taste balance, delicious, and have that goodness in there, but it's that fine line when you're baking at home. So.
And when it can be frozen, I can do it. If I know I'm home for an entire Sunday, I've got a whole day to bake. And I've got
wholesome.
Nearly a term's worth of food in the freezer.
But it actually does make your life easier because come that day when you haven't been to the shops and you're like, oh, I don't have this, you can make a lunchbox quite easily, can't you?
100%. Organisation is key.
Between that and my veggie patch.
Oh, look at you.
I want her to adopt me, honestly. She's a very good baker. Me, not so much. But look, my kids are young enough that they can't quite tell. Yeah. The presentation's not there, but
my presentation's not there.
You know, it really was interesting when you were saying about your journey into motherhood and not realising all of these things and learning, and your mind opened up. I had a really similar experience, and you know, I dabbled in a little bit of food stuff. I have some knowledge, and it's thanks to you, of course, but mine was really big on the cleaning and looking at all of the chemicals and stuff, and I got real into that. And I was hearing comments like, oh, well, you know, when we had that growing up and we're fine.
We turned out all right. Yeah.
We turned out okay. And I'm sure the food comments are very similar. Oh, well, I grew up having barbecue shapes, so I'm fine. And it's like, well, you know, are you though? But also, I don't know that some of these products are the same as what they were when we were growing up.
Well, definitely not food. That's the thing that we are dealing with in our generation is the advances in food science and manufacturing. It wasn't like it was 40 years ago. I grew up in the 80s. I think the biggest problem in the 80s was the excessive added sugar, which, you know, sugar is a huge problem. Whereas now food science is elevating and manufacturers have found ways to save money. So why do we need to put strawberry in a strawberry custard? Let's just put artificial strawberry flavour. Then we'll pop in that, you know, that strawberry coloured pink food colouring and you think you're having strawberry. So for me, the deception around how food science has developed is, I think, one of the biggest problems, because they are taking away the real ingredients and replacing them with artificial because it's a cost saving. And that's what the boardrooms care about, the big companies, is the bottom dollar. That's where they are. It's all about brand trust and the brand. I find, we're talking about it this morning at work, with natural flavours. So that term flavours or natural flavours can be used interchangeably in Australia. So is it an artificial flavour or is it natural? But it comes down to the brand trust. So if you've got a brand there that really pride themselves on using real ingredients and not cutting corners and saving money in their manufacturing, and they put a natural flavour, I believe they're doing the right thing, and it's a naturally derived flavour. But then you have the other guys who are, replicating. There's like a banana cake mix that you can buy but has no banana in on the shelf. And we've seen some really funny things lately, actually. So, every time I walk down the aisle, I'm surprised. This morning I saw Kit Kat cereal. Yeah. And so it's wild how it's changed, and it's a totally different experience than it was from parents or the grandparents. Like my grandma came over from Greece. They had market gardens.
Yeah,
they were making a lot from scratch. And then, sort of the excess sugar movement was in there. People became really sugar aware. Like, I don't want sugar in my food. No sugar was really popular. But then they were kind of sliding in the fake ingredients.
Yeah, the greater evil came in.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I think that there is a lot, of greenwashing is the term I think a lot of them use, isn't it? And it's like the marketing of it. And it's so actually frustrating to think that it's not regulated. So you're telling me the front of the box, they can basically slap whatever sort of claims.
Messages.
No wonder we're all confused.
Everyone's confused, and that's what I feel the most for in this. It's like one way I want people to have access to better food choices with more real ingredients. But for me, I think the driving force is where I came from, and that's the overwhelm as a mum, the mental load, and being tired and trying to figure out the best for my kids and wanting to do the best, but also, running on empty, in that phase of life where you're not sleeping.
And so that pre-packaged stuff is sometimes the easy option because you are tired.
Oh, I think we're all buying it.
Yeah.
And when I started supermarkets, I thought, I can't talk about groceries on social media. Like, how dorky is that? No one is going to care.
Turns out you can.
Yeah, it turns out you can, and everyone's in the same boat. But when I looked at my friendship circle, they were all at Coles and Woolworths too. They were all down the aisle. But on social media, everyone was like veggie patch, sourdough starters, perfect little lives. Everything was homemade. But I was like, that doesn't balance out to, I think, reality of how people are actually shopping. So then there's no information for people in the aisle. There's no one teaching people this is how you choose a good product in the aisle, which is ignore what you see on the front, read the nutrition label and the ingredient list. That's all I go about online, because it's really how you have to shop. The front of the package, I always say, highlights what it doesn't have in there, but it doesn't tell you what's in there. And that's what you want to know. Yeah. Well, you want to know what's in your food. I don't care what you haven't put in there. Just tell me what's in there. And that's the back of the package.
And isn't it interesting as well? I know that I buy things purely because it's the brand that my mum had in the pantry when I was a kid. I was like, oh, look, mum fed me that. That's all good.
So your brand trust is just loyalty.
It's just purely based on, well, mum bought that.
Yeah.
It must be good.
Familiarity.
Because I turned out okay, kind of. And so, I don't look at anything and I need to start doing that.
It's overwhelming though, that ingredients list. I mean, it's almost like another language. And you mentioned natural flavours. I mean, like, what is it? Like, what if it was natural? Wouldn't you just say like,
what it is.
Rosemary seasoning or something? Like, would you say what it was if it was like, I don't know.
Yeah, the thing about natural flavours, and that's probably another podcast episode because I could go on about that for a long time.
Down the rabbit hole.
It's really fascinating though. But basically, a natural flavour and a flavour, the difference in that top level is how they're derived. So a natural flavour has come from a natural source, like a strawberry, and the flavour is artificial to begin with. But the thing about natural flavours and flavours is that once they're derived, they both go through the same chemical process in a lab. So it's just how they're sourced is the difference in a natural flavour. So natural flavour is actually sourced originally from a natural
the strawberry.
Yeah, a natural source. But once it hits the lab, it can go through exactly the same process as the artificial flavour, which has obviously got nothing to do with the real deal. It's formulate it. And the problem with flavors is that's the IP of the brand. So we will never know what is in a flavor, and a flavor can contain up to 50 chemical ingredients. But we will never know. Coca-Cola will never release their flavor, what's in there. It is the brand's IP, and we're shopping blind. It's the mystery ingredient.
It's like KFC.
That's what I always used to say about fragrance, didn't I?
Yes.
Like, you don't know what it is, and they get away with it because it's their secret
and you're spraying it
recipe.
all over your body.
And that's exactly it. Like fragrance to beauty is what flavors is to food. But the thing is with flavors, it is a complex area, and that's why I was saying it's almost another discussion. But if a product is a certified organic product, we're talking about this morning at work, I will buy product with flavors because the flavor is strictly regulated. You can't put hexane in that, for example. It is a really regulated, what they allow in certified organic foods. So if there's a natural flavor there, you know it's okay. They haven't allowed that chemical concoction that can be in general.
And this is where I've been really enjoying your stuff, and even like your newsletter I love.
Oh, cool.
Like that organic product might typically be more expensive, but this week it's on sale and it's cheaper than the one over there that's laced with all of this nasty stuff. You know what I mean. Essentially, because it's interesting, like why is it largely, like you think, most people cook dinner for their family, right? You send them off.
Doesn't always get eaten, but we cook it.
But it's like the breakfast, that seems like a real big, like,
it's a convenience thing.
But also
rushing out the door.
One that we send them off to school, like it's like a ticking time bomb, really, just waiting for that tantrum to hit. And then your lunchbox filled with all of those things, they're not going to eat the apple if they've got like some other thing there. And no wonder, we're starting them off on the wrong foot.
But we're just doing the best we can. And that's the thing. People, they don't know any better. Like you only know what you know. So that's what, at Supermarkets, what we're really passionate about, the awareness. So when you're saying, how does someone start off? I don't want you to think you have to go and have this perfect pantry. I just want people to be aware. So when they choose to buy that product and they know it's not great, at least it was their choice. Yeah. They weren't tricked because of the front of the package. They knew, and they made that educated decision in the aisle.
100%. And apologies if that came across as shamey how I said that, because I'm a mum living this too. I have some awareness, and I will say, like, one of my, okay choices in our house, and like, please look away from me when I say this, but we still have Vegemite because I have tried the alternative and I don't like it. And my kids weren't eating it. And it's like, well, it's a sometimes thing, that sort of thing.
But though, that's
and
the
I
thing.
know, and I know. So I'm not shaming anyone. I'm living this too. And sometimes, I do let my kids have this, but I'm buying it knowing that it's not that great.
And my personal diet isn't perfect. Like I have the shittest seed milk in my coffee in the morning because I've swapped and changed.
The best.
And I just like it, and I didn't want to mess with my coffee, even though I know it's full of oils and sugar and it's not great. So I've cut down to one a day, and now I'm trying to go 3/4 latte. But the thing is, like, we're not wanting to be perfect. Yeah. We're just wanting to know. And I know that's not great for me, and I could make a better choice in the area. I don't want to.
So true.
Some areas,
and you enjoy it.
Yeah.
Enjoy
and some
coffee.
things you don't want to swap. Yeah. And that's fine. It's just about when you can do it.
It's the education, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the education. If it costs the same, it's the same flavour, your kids don't notice. It's
when you say
so
passata,
easy.
like there isn't a difference really, not really in flavour. So if that one is better, of course. And I loved when you said, like, overall it's about the burden that you're putting on your body. So if you are
100%
making good choices along the line, that's not going to have that impact that it potentially would if you didn't make anything.
You've hit the nail on the head. And yet again, I don't want to get too geeky on you, but it's all about additives are put into our food based on an ADI, an acceptable daily intake. So they assume, the regulatory bodies, that you know how much you're consuming. So you won't have any effects from MSG if you're only having XYZ amount. But my thing is, people don't know when they're eating it.
No.
So the acceptable daily intake is easily exceeded when you're having that additive multiple times a day, and then you get the side effect. So it's all about being aware when you're having it, making that conscious decision, and just reducing it where you can. So you can still have those additives if you want, but just sometimes they're not sneakily kind of being in breakfast, lunch and dinner, and especially for kids.
I remember when I first heard the word matrescence and feeling a sense of validation and peace that I wasn't alone.
Yes, and that relief that I could give up trying to get back to the woman I was before, Kez, because it couldn't happen even if I wanted it to.
So imagine if we learned all about this process of becoming a mother as girls well before we enter motherhood.
And just like going through adolescence, understanding the changes that are happening and knowing there are resources to support the transition. What a game changer that would be.
I have no doubt we are on the way to mainstreaming matrescence, and we are so excited to share that Melbourne is hosting a matrescence festival on the 29th and 30th of March this year. That's next month.
There will be guest speakers, performances and workshops, and a beautiful community atmosphere exploring the metamorphosis of motherhood.
You can pick up a ticket at matrescencefestival.com.
One of your recent Instagram posts looked at rice crackers.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
And I really liked that one because I have to say it wasn't the obvious brand. When you look at, I mean, there was one organic one which was like, okay, yeah, cool. I know the one, they actually taste really yummy. But the obvious, like normally sort of brand, well, that was a shocker.
Sakata.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's surprising because we always say to people, just go for the plain option if you're wanting to reduce the amount of additives. But then when you look at plain crackers, I was like, wow, okay. So we've got a totally huge spectrum on the plain cracker front, and one that is so cost effective. It's on sale again this week at Woolies, and it had 3 simple ingredients and one of the lowest sodium of all of them. And it's, half the price of the organic one. It's amazing when you deep dive into it. So it doesn't cost anyone more. You probably save buying that brand. Not have the additives, have less sodium. It's a win-win-win. So,
but as soon as the tired, busy mums see the special sign, it's like, oh, that's half price this week.
Yeah.
Don't even look.
And that's why we share the specials every week. So we go like, this is the specials. This is all you need to buy. Choose from these brands. They're cheaper.
I'm now obsessed with the specials. I watch the specials every week. I'm like, what we got this week?
I love the specials too. Yeah. Like, we love it even as a team. We get excited when certain things are on sale every week.
Well, because the special price right now is probably the price it was 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. I thought that this morning when I was filming cheese slices, and they're on sale for $9.50 because they're now $11 for a packet of 24. But
$9.50 is the special price.
That's right, yeah. So when I started this, they were $8 or $9 for 24. So dairy's had the biggest price hike out of any category, but it's sad to see.
Gosh, we have a long way to go to hold these companies more accountable, don't you think?
And I think we've talked about it in previous episodes, that this is the generation of mums that want to be better, not that our mums didn't, they just did what they knew.
Yeah.
We are armed with more information. We've got the power, we've got the knowledge.
And an app. Like, are you telling me we can just use an app? Like, this is a game changer.
Yeah.
Well, I put everything that over those years of overwhelm what I needed. So because it was a lot of work, like trekking down those aisles and like comparing all the categories. So
for your private Facebook group.
Yeah, my private Facebook group. And then when I started the Instagram page, it was COVID, and everyone was like, oh, I shop with your app. I shop with your Instagram. I'm taking your Instagram to the supermarket.
Wow.
Like, oh my God, thank you so much. I'm so confused. And I was like, I don't want people shopping with Instagram. So that's when I decided to turn it into an app and do what I needed, which was I needed just a list of products that were good. I needed to know when they're on sale because I need to stick to a budget. And then we, down the track, we decided to put in the food because like yourself, you're saying you've discovered baking, and it's like that's the ultimate cost saver, the ultimate way to eat better. So we put that into there, and we kind of try to create this little world of reducing the overwhelm. That's the goal of the app. The app is, yes, we want you to eat better and save, but for me it's about taking away that mental load. So if you find it's hard and overwhelming, we want to kind of
it doesn't need to be hard and overwhelming.
Yeah, we want to do the work for you. Like I wish someone had done the work for me.
And an app means that you can arm husband with it and send 100%. Him off to the store to do the grocery
I love the stories.
shop.
I get the best stories every day about, there's just no excuses anymore. This is what you buy, this is what you shop, here's the meal plan. So,
and here's the recipe. And
now you cook it. There's the kitchen.
Yeah. I would really love to know, as a mum yourself, what does a week of dinners look like in your house, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, this term, I'm glad we're talking about it this year because term 4 was a disaster.
Oh, same here.
So it was, we were sliding to the end of last year.
Yeah.
It took on done too much.
Crawling. I was crawling to the finish line.
Yeah. And when you were saying before about your lunchboxes, I totally relate. My lunchboxes I wasn't sharing them online. I was saying I can't. They're so uninspirational. They're shameful almost, mine were. They were just the same thing every day. Or the canteen. Like I was relying on the canteen so much. But you do what you do. And the one thing I'm really passionate now about as a mum is reducing that mum guilt. We've all put so much guilt on ourselves in this generation. I'm sure it's been there for many generations, but I think the social media age has added to the pressure of how your home should look, what you should be eating, wearing, doing.
Instagram versus reality.
Oh, yeah. So that's why I always love sharing my shit dinners and my hopeless lunchboxes sometimes. Because like, this is my world. This is what I do for work now. But still, sometimes I can't keep up with it.
I'm a real person at the end of the day.
Exactly. I'm tired. One of the biggest rules I have in our house is that I aim for Sunday to Thursday to cook. I don't aim to cook every night because I think that's unrealistic. We get tired. The wheels fall off by the end of the week, no matter how organised you are. And I try to cook dinners now. I'm a single mum now, so things have changed as well. Like I'm even more time poor than I was before. So I try to do things like cook dinners that I can use for lunchbox the next day. So the other day I made like a veggie loaded bolognese and I made sure there was extra for lunchboxes yesterday back to school.
Cool.
So I'm trying to do like double time. I find prepping my dinners in the morning changes everything.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
Yes.
I get home from work, get the kids home from school, everyone's tired.
You can't be bothered starting it at 5 o'clock.
No, and if you don't know what you're cooking at 5 o'clock, that's even worse. So I like to jot down in my little meal plantain plate what I'm making, make sure I've got that. It's in the fridge. Otherwise, it doesn't happen. And then, but then Fridays and Saturdays are my no-cook nights. They can be whatever nights. And they might be scrambled eggs on toast, just something really simple, little pita bread pizzas. But dinner for me is something that the kids are going to eat and that is simple. Last night we had steaks, corn, broccoli and sweet potato chips. So there wasn't, it was quite a healthy meal, but I didn't give them heaps of choice. I'm like, here's your dinner. We work a lot with pediatric dietitians and I've learned so much from them over the years. And it's kind of like I don't call foods good or bad or treats or no treats. And so now we're just I'm just presenting to them the meal, what they eat, what they don't. But before, I think when I started feeding family dinners, I was like, what do you want? Oh, you don't want it like that? You want it like this?
Let me make you something
and you
else.
want it like this. And I'm making...
And then you're making multiple meals. I've done
100%.
that.
We've all done that.
Can't do it
And,
anymore.
I was too tired. It was crazy. So now, and I was making the kids a different dinner to myself. I did that for a long time, whereas that doesn't work anymore. So I'm like, here, this is what we're having. And I make sure I sit down and eat with them so they're kind of watching me. And then last night they all just ate like their veggies and their meat. And I was like, this is so rare.
It really is like
Take a photo of it.
monkey see, monkey do, not to call our children monkeys. But like if you don't eat broccoli, like how can you model? You have to...
I eat just about everything and my kids do not.
I know. It's really hard. Really fussy. Like my daughter hated broccoli for like the last year. So I just kept on giving it to her. And every time she'd leave it on the plate, didn't make it a big deal. And then last night we sat down and she ate it. And I was like, this shit works. Oh my God. You know what I'm learning? Like, it's
just wait there. Let me take a
photo of this.
Not making it a big deal and not making dinners like so exciting. Like it's some sort of menu at a restaurant.
Yeah. Because that's a sometimes thing and then you can choose. Okay, Nabs, if you don't mind me asking, what would you expect your weekly grocery shop to come to then?
Yeah. Oh, that's
Is that
fine.
okay to ask that?
Of course. I'm all about the dollars. It really varies, to be honest. I found going back to term 4, which was everything I don't want to be doing, was a disaster with my groceries because I was going multiple times a week. Because I stopped meal planning and it's funny because we're writing a book at the moment and we're in the editing stage. I've been reading it a lot. I'm like, how about you take your own advice, lady? And actually, when I read it, so this year that's what I've been doing again. I'm like, God, this works. Like 20 minutes, I plan what I'm cooking and I also write some things that I want to bake or make. Yeah. And then I buy what I need based on specials. And so I would do a food shop for between around 300, sometimes 250 to 300 roughly, because groceries are super expensive now. Food is super expensive. So usually around 250 now. We're only a family of 3. It used to be higher. Yeah. The girls I work with were talking about this recently. One of the girls has got 3 teenage boys. She's spending $400 a week easily. Wow. Another girl is spending probably around the $300 mark as well.
I don't even want to admit what mine is because I do a lot of those top-up shops. And the thing is, you go in there needing to buy like a can of coconut cream and you come out with like $90 worth of
This is what I say in the book. Every time you go to the shop, you're guaranteed to spend $80. I don't know how it works, but if you're doing multiple shops, the first one might be like a mini shop, 120, and then you've popped in 2 or 3 times. It's
so true.
$80, maybe it's 60, but it could probably be 90. Like it's the biggest way to exceed in your grocery spend, and that's what I was noticing with my budget, was I was doing all these mini shops that were actually adding up. So I know if I plan, I can cook like 6 dinners, lunch box snacks, my own lunches for like £250, £300 plan.
I think that's great.
Yeah,
that would be amazing.
I used to share it on Instagram, actually. I should probably go back to doing that. And meal ideas.
We'll be liking all of it. We're like, double tap.
And there's so many great meals you can make that are really cost effective for big families as well.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it really can add up quite quickly.
Yeah. I mean, of course, it's just like this one likes this and this one likes that, and it all just gets away from you, and it's
back to
double
basics.
dinners. Yeah.
It's At the moment, I'm at the stage of, okay, this is what's for dinner, but I need to be able to almost deconstruct it so that, like a stir fry. Okay, so that's been taken out for the kids. Now I can add the sauce, because they won't have it with the sauce and all the veggies in it. They want it all separate and it can't be touching. And
my kids are the same.
So we all eat the same thing, but variations of.
it's more painful to cook.
I was making different versions of dinner for what we were having and then what the kids wanted. So that's where it cost you more. Yeah, I think all parents have kind of done that when the kids are in that really fussy stage. And the biggest thing I notice now through social media is the amount of parents telling me how fussy their kids are. So the beige eating, it's a huge thing out there that kids are super fussy, and
the whiter the food, the better.
Yeah, and it's
the white rice,
it's hard.
the pasta.
Yeah, for parents, and it's never that the parents aren't doing a great job. It's just something that is really common, and maybe more people are speaking about it now. So
possibly,
the beige eating is more commonly referred to.
This feels like a solution to that too. I mean, we spoke before about the additives and the preservatives and the taste bud overwhelm that must bring. Stripping that back, like, did you see that in your kids? Their palate, like their plate, what they would eat expanded? Did it work?
They were quite little when I started this, so they've kind of grown up like that now. I find the opposite is when, over the holidays, so many times friends would come the other day with some like really flavoured chicken MSG loaded chips. Now, I let my kids have some. I'm not going to be like, you can't have that. I'm not going to ever create a bad relationship with food. They rarely have it. It is what it is. But they were like, wow, oh my God, so yummy, so much flavour. And they were like freaking out. We're on the beach, and I was like, oh my God. Like, it was the opposite, because the flavour was so excessive. And I tried some, and I was like, God, I don't remember these. These are like
salty
salty, and like they tasted delicious, but for me they tasted so excessively flavoured. I was like, wow. But so when they have something that's really excessively artificially flavoured, they're just like, wow, they love it.
I've noticed it in my kids with certain things, and I should disclose we're also vegan as well. Okay. So me label looking comes with that added layer as well.
That's harder when you're vegan, because the foods that are marketed towards vegans or vegetarians.
Well, these days, when I first went vegan, it was a lot more simple. But the boys sometimes can tell me they don't really like that. That doesn't make them feel really good. And that's so interesting to me. Like my oldest will be like, oh no, like they make me feel weird.
To verbalise that is...
That's amazing, actually.
Yeah. And he said it a couple of times, and it's like, wow, interesting. And I feel like, there may be some sort of disconnect with us, even us adults. You overeat, you scoff your food. Like we really have lost sort of that relationship with food. A lot of people don't know how their food is made or what it is. And I'm really open with the boys. I've let them have things that aren't vegan before because I don't want them to, have issues with that. But I don't like that. And it's like just telling them, just so you know, that's got that in,
They can make a
how
decision
how many even adults wouldn't know what's in that hot dog? I bet you they don't.
No, and they don't. And that's the thing that's key. It's just about being aware. And I don't think it's about being additive free or being vegan or not. It's just about choosing what feels good for you. So if you feel that you're consuming, less artificial ingredients and your stomach feels better and you feel better, that's great. So it's about the sort of the awareness, and it's amazing from a young age if they can kind of connect to what they're eating. There's an amazing account on Instagram called Boob to Food. I'm not sure if you follow.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Luca, and she's got, so much education about feeding little kids and like sort of making them, like involving them in the cooking, sitting down as a family to eat, like the positive language, asking them how they feel. And it's all about that connection to food. That's, I think, what we've kind of missed as this society has got so busy.
Yeah.
We're all busy,
Convenience dinners, how often do we sit around a table and actually
Eat on the run.
enjoy the meal?
Yeah. I've got netball training tonight, so you eat separately because we'll eat when we get home from training, and it's all just,
It's almost like we don't love food like they used to. And so, trying to slow it down. But it's hard when you're scheduled to your eyeballs.
And even if that's like one meal a week, like what a great start and what a great like thing to enjoy as a family to say, hey, like Sunday dinners and we all sit around and we don't rush, the TV's off, no phones. I think that's such a great starting point for people.
Yeah.
Taking it back to how it used to be. Really. Yeah.
We have learnt so much.
Really? Yeah.
Really, really, really learnt a lot. Nabs, free was the word you gave us to describe who you were before you were a mum.
Was that bad?
Not at all. I remember the days.
No schedules, zero responsibility. No.
What about a word now to describe the woman you are now that you are a mum?
Oh, like fulfilled. These are just the first words that come to my house. I'm not cheating. My mind, sorry. Come to my house. Fulfilled is probably the word now. Like I feel very satisfied and happy with life. I couldn't imagine life without my kids. They're my motivation for everything. This is why I'm here rambling about groceries, because I care about the kids, my kids, like what they eat, but then everyone else's kids. And just feel, like it's just a purpose. I love being a mum. Best thing I've ever done.
Sometimes I ring my mum up and I'm like, Mum, how do I make that, veggie
you used to
soup
make?
that you used to make? Like I can't make it the same, and I can just see your children over the years and just the knowledge that they'll just continue. Well, what is Mum? Let's ask Mum.
Let's ask Mum. Yeah. Can we buy this?
What a legacy, right?
Well, I hope so, yeah. And it's funny because I always wanted to have more children because I just love being a mum. But this sounds so, I don't know, a bit weird. But then when I started Supermarket Swap and then I started talking to all the mums and
it's your third baby.
Supermarket Swap, but all their kids.
Oh,
so it's like
sure.
I kind of like cared about what my kids were eating.
Yeah.
And
now you care about all the kids.
Yeah, I'm really passionate about all the kids and what they're eating and how they're growing up and how they're feeling as well. So, no, I love it. I love being a mum. It's the best.
Look, you have got an epic website. I was telling you before how much I love it. I also mentioned the newsletter. I think, your Instagram, there's a lot of free resources that you guys
100%.
offer. Also your app, it really is such a handy measure to have there with you in the supermarket. We're going to put all the links in the show notes.
All the bits, yep.
If anyone wants to check it out, because it really, like you say, one step at a time and
100%,
one swap at a time, and don't overwhelm yourself. And
I hope that was really clear today.
Absolutely.
I really don't want people to feel overwhelmed. It's a whole other world, but you don't need to worry about it. It's just
baby
about
steps.
taking that moment, just scan that ingredient, look for ingredients that you know, but you feel comfortable with, and starting slow.
knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And if you still want to eat the Vegemite like me, no one's ever going to take my Vegemite away. So
You enjoy
Or
that.
mine.
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was great. Good to chat.
Thank you so much for joining us on How Motherhood Changed Me. We'd love you to be part of the conversation by connecting with us on social media. And if you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review and subscribe.